What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of the Cherry Pickers. Gary Althauser here with Jim Bailey. We're back for another episode before we get started on some divisional Sunday playoff games. We unfortunately weren't able to come in yesterday. I was out coaching. I didn't get back in time for the games to be able to go over those. But we're back today. There's 2 games today. The Bucs and Lions are at 3 o'clock, and then after that, it's the Bills and Chiefs. This is obviously a pretty exciting weekend, especially for me as a 49ers fan. But let's start off with last week's games. Last week, our system picks went 3-1. We won with our Bucs +3 pick, our Rams +3 pick, and our Chiefs -4.5 pick. And the game that we lost was the Cleveland Browns. We had them at -2.5, and they got blown out by Houston. But let's start with that Steelers game. Jim, you're a big Steelers fan. A lot of Steelers fans around here. As a non-Steelers fan, I think that game was a lot closer than that score. I think the Steelers played good. I think really 2 plays doomed them. The interception thrown when they were at the 2-yard line, and then that fumble when they were deep in their own territory that led to a Buffalo touchdown. I think the Steelers played good, and Buffalo just still doing what it's done all year is – half of the games they don't live up to their billing. They don't dominate when you think that they should. And I think Pittsburgh and Rudolph, I don't know if there's something going on there, or is it because that was only the 4th game he started? There hasn't been tape on the guy in years. You know, is he getting that cushion the guys come in and get for the first few games, especially backups, because there isn't that tape out there for these defensive coordinators to work with. I don't know what it was. But if I'm a Steelers fan, I would have been pretty happy with that. How do you feel about that game?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you're disappointed they lost. Going into the game, I had hopes they could win the game. Really, the way they played down the stretch the last few games, it wasn't out of the question that they could pull the upset there. So just falling so deep into a hole so quickly. I mean, they were down 21-0 early in the second quarter. That's just so hard to come back from against a team as good as Buffalo. And give them credit, they did fight back, got within a score in the second half. But I mean, Buffalo's really good. You can see it. They're just very talented across the board. Josh Allen does what he does. Had that long scramble for a touchdown. Like, he's tough to stop. I mean, they beat you in so many ways. So gifting a team like that, those turnovers, like you said, that's the key of the game. Of course, they had the interception in the end zone, the George Pickens fumble in their own territory. I mean, and we keep waiting for Josh Allen to do his turnover, and it just never came. So That's a difference in the game when it's that close. 2 turnovers, it's hard to overcome. So, yeah, Steelers going into the offseason, I mean, they came out and said, looks like Tomlin's going to be back next year, which is not surprising. You know, there was some rumblings about him, but, I would have been shocked if he left or if the Steelers decided to part ways with him. It's just I would have been totally shocked if that was happening. So, big questions for them is QB and offense coordinator. They did say they're going to look outside the organization for an OC, which is great news to me. I would like them to try to bring in someone with some experience or just someone from outside the organization with some new ideas. They love to hire from within. So I was glad to hear they're going outside for the OC.
Yeah, they definitely need to make a change there. I know that they're a team that likes to keep things consistent. They like to keep things the same. That consistency has led to a lot of success, but it's time, I think, for them to look outside. Keeping, the head coach Tomlin's not going anywhere. Whoever they get is going to be a Steelers guy anyway. So who cares if it's someone outside the organization? If it's a Tomlin guy, it's going to be a Steelers guy, and he's going to have that same mentality. But we'll be interested to see where that heads. If I'm a Steelers fan, yeah, it stinks you're out of the playoffs, but for the way the team played at the end of the season, you think you'd have to be happy. But if you were a Browns fan, the way the season ended, I don't know how happy you could be with the game. Of course, with all the things that they encountered throughout the season and overcame, you have to be happy about that. But I don't know about you. I thought the Browns got completely out-coached and out-schemed and outplayed. That Houston team really, really showed something. And I don't know, they lost last night. We're going to talk about that, to just a better team. But I don't know how really Cleveland could be upset with the way the season went, considering all the circumstances that they had to face.
Yeah, they had tons of injuries. We talked about the Browns a lot, and they kind of overcame them many times through the year. But in that Houston game, the Texans coaching staff did a great job. I mean, they attacked weaknesses in the Browns, especially where they had guys out on defense. The safety Hickman for Cleveland's rookie undrafted guy played pretty well throughout the year, but I mean, they were picking on him relentlessly in the pass game. Took advantage of the aggressive style that Cleveland likes to run. Can see why the Houston offense coordinator is getting some looks now for head coaching jobs, because it was a great game plan. It really was. So, we bet Cleveland in that game, but retrospectively looking at it, probably wasn't the best bet. Just looking at how many holes Cleveland had, their offensive line finally kind of showed where, they just missed too many guys, weren't able to run the ball, which was a problem late in the season. I mean, even though they were winning, they weren't running the ball like they've been in years past. So, still a pretty good season for the Browns, considering everything that went on. I'm sure a team like that wants to go higher, of course, but still got a lot of good pieces in place. So it'll be an interesting offseason for them. Watson coming back. Saw they're also looking for a new offensive coordinator. They let Van Pelt go, so they're looking for a brand new OC. Brought in Ken Dorsey this week, Deuce Staley. So kind of the same situation the Steelers are, looking for a new offense coordinator.
Yeah, I don't know. Their offense was up and down all year, but heck, you started 4 quarterbacks. How could it not be? It's tough to blame anybody on that coaching staff. But, at the end of the day, they did have a successful season. They went to the playoffs. They just ran into a team that really has a lot going for them. Bobby Slowick, like you said, he's getting so much hype right now. I'll be shocked if he doesn't get offered a job. Whether he takes it or not, I don't know. I think Carolina's going to be desperate for a head coach. I don't think there's going to be many really highly sought after guys that are going to want to go there, because David Tepper is a very he's a volatile owner, and he didn't even give the original guy they hired this year a full season to find out what he could do. Not only that, but he strong-armed his way and made them draft the quarterback that the head coach didn't want. So I don't think a head coach is going to want to go there if you can't get the guy you want when you're drafting, and then you don't even get a full season to do, to figure things out. So if I'm Bobby Slowick, if I don't get a job out there like maybe in San Diego, where you've got talent that just hasn't lived up to its potential, I would just hold off, stay with Houston another year. There'll be more opportunities coming for sure.
Yeah, that, of course, the organization for Houston's pointed straight upwards with Stroud, and they're looking like they're in a good spot anyway. So, yeah,
right.
For the Browns too, like that's kind of another job where Stefanski's really the de facto offensive coordinator. He really runs the offense, so it's always interesting to see who wants to come in there and kind of be pseudo offensive coordinator. So, but it's really still Stefanski's offense. What about the Browns, do you think? Like, if you're running that team, what would you look to address this offseason to make them get to the next step other than staying healthy? Where would you like them to address some positions of need?
Well, honestly, they've done a great job with depth. They really, really did a good job this offseason, signing a bunch of guys. I can remember we were talking in the offseason, like, wow, why are they signing so many linemen, offensive and defensive? Well, it came in handy, especially on the offensive side. And the play dropped to the offensive line, but I don't think it dropped a ton. The defensive line was obviously good all season long. I would say the one position that they really need to upgrade is the wide receiver position. They don't have much there. Really, they got one really good guy, and then after that, they don't have much at all. And Njoku really came through as a tight end this season, being used as much as, a big, strong guy, athletic guy like that. I don't know why they haven't gone to him more before. They seem to do it this year. But I don't know if it was out of, okay, we're finally going to use this guy, or was it out of, okay, we don't have anybody else to throw to. So bringing in another capable receiver in there, I'd say that would probably be their number one need. But just getting healthy after that, really, that's about the only thing that I can see from a roster standpoint that they need to improve. Their kicker had a great season until he got hurt. They drafted a kid high and last season, and he just mentally choked, and they finally cut ties with him. Brought in a veteran guy who had a really good season. They can bring him back. That would be a big help. Continue good on that side of the ball, special team side of the ball. But really, when I'm thinking about it, it's really the wide receiver core.
And that division's going to be stacked. I mean, next year they got Baltimore, who's good. Burrow's going to be back. Pittsburgh and Cleveland, like both those teams are challenged to work their way up the ladder and get up there. Similar with the Steelers, their roster is really good. It's looking just like quarterback. I mean, they've done a lot over the last couple of years to likewise improve depth, take away some glaring weaknesses. The offensive line has gotten better for sure. That was their biggest weakness, and it's still not where they want it to be, but it's certainly better than it was. The big question mark there is QB. I mean, they kind of came out and said they still believe in Pickett, which, of course, that's what they're going to say. I mean, that's just standard. But it will be, I don't know, what are they going to do? What would you do if you're GM of the Steelers? You got Pickett coming back. Rudolph's a free agent. You don't have a high draft pick. What's your game plan for quarterback next year?
I mean, you don't really have one unless you're going to go after a veteran out there. You're going to go after Kirk Cousins. You're going to go after Russell Wilson. You're going to go after Ryan Tannehill. You got guys here that are in their mid-30s. I don't feel like the Steelers are in win-now mode, though. So, I mean, it'd be nice to get those guys because you get some real consistent play. Ryan Tannehill needs an offensive line. He can't play without an offensive line. Russell Wilson has played without an offensive line before, so has Kirk Cousins. But if you're going to go the Tannehill route, he has to have a line to do well. I don't think the Steelers have that. So you're looking at a guy that either's got a quick release like Cousins does, or you're mobile like Wilson, is. And both Wilson and Cousins had great seasons this year. They're going to cost a lot of money. I don't know. That's not the Steelers' way, though. I mean, if they ever brought in a big name free agent quarterback, I can't think of one in my lifetime that they signed to bring in. Like literally, I'm thinking back through the years, Neil O'Donnell, Tommy Maddox. Obviously, they drafted Ben. Before Ben, you're talking, this is 20 years ago. Back before that, Bubby Brister, Cordell Stewart. These are all just guys
all guys they drafted.
Yeah, I mean, Brister came from the Eagles, but or did he go to the Eagles after he was in Pittsburgh? I can't remember.
Yeah, he was drafted by Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Okay.
But the only one I can think of that wasn't drafted was Maddox, and he was kind of a special circumstance, got him out of the XFL and only started a year or two. So I'm kind of with you. Like, I think Pickett's week one starter. I've been saying it the last half of the season, where it's just how the Steelers roll. They're not going to give up on him that quickly after they invested a first-round pick on him. The big question mark will be Rudolph. Are they really going to re-sign him back to another contract where Pickett's going to be looking over his shoulder for sure if Rudolph is over there with the way he played down the stretch? So, and then is Rudolph going to be willing to come back and play back up again? They could. I think ideally what they'll do is try to get Rudolph to come back on another 1-year deal and then tell him we'll have a competition in camp. But I think by far the most likely scenario is Pickett's week one starter.
Yeah, you kind of have to. When we saw Trubisky come in, you and I talked like, man, if this is saying anything, you ought to appreciate Kenny Pickett a little more. But then when, they go to the third stringer, you're like, well, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe neither one of those guys are the guy. Rudolph played better than both of them. But like we said, it wasn't a big enough sample size to see whether that's reality or not, because we've seen him play nearly an entire season in the past. It didn't work out well. That Steelers team that should have won 12, 13 games with the talent they had, they went 8-8, and they lost a bunch of really close games that if Ben was in there, in my opinion, they would have won. And that's a team that could have very seriously been a Super Bowl threat. I mean, bring back Rudolph. He played well enough. He's been in Pittsburgh forever. His family's there. He's not young. I would think he would lean to want to come back to Pittsburgh, be aggressive, offer him a fair contract, and, keep him there. And if Pickett doesn't work out, you go to him. And if he works out, great. Who knows? If he doesn't work out, then you really seriously have to address the quarterback position. But it does kind of suck to be in limbo again.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome. And what they'll try to do is bring Rudolph back. Like, Rudolph definitely raised the stock from being borderline out of the league to now, at least being considered as a serious backup around the league. So, I still don't think like anybody's going to offer him like guaranteed starter to come play. He's still just like backup level. He definitely played well down the stretch, but like you said, it's a sample size. He would have to do more to really be like guaranteed starter somewhere. So It will probably come down to what kind of interest he gets around the league. Ideally, I agree. Rudolph, if he can sign a 1-year deal, decent backup money, low end starter, and just have them compete and see what happens. And then, the next year is really when the big decision has to be made, where Pickett has his rookie contract coming into an end. They'll have to make a big decision there at that point.
Yeah, just bring Rudolph back. Let him be the modern day Chuck Batch, the Charlie Batch of the modern day, where he's just in Pittsburgh forever as a backup. He comes in, he spot starts, he does a good job for you, and he retires as a Steeler. That's probably their ideal situation, I would imagine. So, end of the season for both the Steelers and the Browns. Both make the playoffs. Both make first-round exits in the wild card. But both teams with some promise for the future. Let's move on to yesterday's games. And unfortunately, I didn't get back from Wheeling in time to have a show. But the system really did like the Ravens to cover that 9.5, and they did cover. That was a close first half, but the second half, the Ravens showed why they are the number 1 seed. Lamar Jackson, man, it's so hard to play against this offense, because if the secondary does its job and keeps guys covered, then you're relying on your linebackers to keep up with a guy that fast. And there were so many times where they almost had him, and for a sack or a tackle for a short gain. He does a couple jukes, and man, you're talking 10 or 12 yards. He's rushing for. They looked really good. I don't want, if the 49ers make the playoffs, I really hope it's not Baltimore that we have to play again. They showed in the second half why they are who they are. They even gave up a special teams touchdown and still covered that 9.5, no problem. Houston, hats off to them. Great season, but they were just not there. They don't have the talent that the Baltimore has. They don't have the guys in the trenches that Baltimore does. And C.J. Stroud, great rookie year. He's not Lamar Jackson, though.
Yeah, Baltimore really did flex their muscles. After that punt return for a touchdown, I was texting like, oh, man, here we go. Baltimore might really get tight here and start to feel the pressure. And Houston did even get the ball back there, and that missed field goal at the end of the half kind of took the momentum out of their sails. But second half, it was all Baltimore. I mean, they just, like I said, flexed their muscles offensively and defensively. Jackson, it's just the scrambling. Even the first half, watching it, it's like Baltimore isn't doing much of anything. It's really just Jackson running the ball and scrambling, and you think Houston would try to take that away, like everybody would try to take it away, but you can't. He's just that fast, and he has come a long way as a passer too, where if you go full on mode to try to take away his running, he can make passes. Likely Flowers. I mean, they got some decent weapons where he can still drop back way better than he could a few years ago, even where he can sit in the pocket and make some passes. So, I mean, there's a reason they're number 1 seed. They looked really good. Houston, it was interesting. They showed a graphic. They was blitzing way more than Ryans usually likes to blitz. Yesterday, they did at one point, they had 70% of the pass plays Baltimore did. Houston was blitzing, where usually during the season it was 20% for Houston. So interesting. They must have saw something where try to blitz him, maybe try to get him before he starts scrambling, because you're right. That's what killed him really was the scrambling and Jackson's running.
Yeah, and he kills you on third down. It's 3rd and 7. That he's in shotgun. They're going to pass the ball. The secondary does its job. The front is getting some pressure. And then there's this 10-yard gap in between, the line of scrimmage and the first down. He makes one move. He's fast enough. He gets a first down. It has to drive defensive coordinators absolutely nuts, because what do? You can't have somebody spy on him, because if you got somebody spying on him, then the defense has to go one-on-one with everyone else. And defense is already they're at a disadvantage to start, because you can't predict where a guy is going to run. You can't predict the play. You can watch film, but you don't. If the play breaks down, you're just chasing guys. You're chasing them all over the place. And I don't know anybody that's on the defense that's going to be able to keep up with him anyway. So, I mean, to beat them, they have to make some mistakes. You have to keep him inside, the pocket, and you have to have some sure tackling. It just didn't work out for Houston yesterday, and Baltimore's heading straight into this playoff, looking like they are going to be probably – I mean, the 49ers played like crap yesterday. I don't know if the odds have changed for the Super Bowl champs, but they should be the odds-on favorite to win as of right now, if you ask me.
Yeah, I would imagine if there was a hypothetical Super Bowl line, which I'm sure there are out there. I still think San Francisco would probably be slightly favored, but yeah, it's the gap is closed, especially with the head-to-head win. Baltimore, I mean, they're going to have a tough game next week too, though. I mean, KC, Buffalo, it's certainly not a gimme game by any stretch. I have to wonder, like, who do you think Baltimore matches up better with? I mean, they're sitting home, resting, sitting pretty today, watch the game. Who do you think they would like to see? Who do you think would match up better for Baltimore?
I would probably say Kansas City. Buffalo, they have the second best pass rush win rate in the league. They can get home to the quarterback. They probably do a better job of that than Kansas City. And Kansas City their run defense is their one weakness. So, I mean, I would imagine that's probably who they'd rather play is the Chiefs. Buffalo's ceiling is higher, if you ask me. When Josh Allen's playing great, when he's able to run, he had that big touchdown run against Pittsburgh last week. That's what the guy can do. He's got a cannon for an arm, but he doesn't have much to throw to either. And you take out one guy there, you take out Stephon Diggs. Who's he going to? Gabe Davis isn't playing today, I don't think. So on the offensive front, I would say it's still Buffalo's a better team. The defensive front, Kansas City maybe has a better overall defense, but I think Buffalo's might match up better. I'd probably rather see this Kansas City team, but either one of them could be a threat. And, Baltimore's played inconsistent this season too. They've had games where, like that Rams game, and they had to go into overtime where they were, way better across the board talent-wise. They lost to that Steelers team. They dropped 8 passes. They played games that were close, that shouldn't have been close. So they're not perfect by any means, but I do think that they probably match up better with Kansas City. Chiefs are well coached, but I just think the personnel, as far as that goes, it's a better matchup there.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, they're feeling good either way. Being at home, AFC Championship game, of course, you'd ask them this before the season, like sign us up for sure. They're just well coached too. Like Harbaugh does a great job there. Been there forever. Good run organization, kind of like the Steeler model where it's steady and they do things kind of a certain way and do it for a long time, and they've just churned out a lot of success. Houston, though, they had their chances, really. They're in the first half. They hung with them, was tied up. They had that punt return, started to think maybe this is it, and they just got outclassed in the second half. You kind of see that sometimes where a young team steps up, wins a playoff game, and they're there, and you think, man, here we go, and they just kind of run out of steam, run into an obvious better foe, and just run out of steam. I think that's what happened with Houston, but great season there. What about that team? If you're Houston, what kind of positions, what would you like to see that team add to take the next step next year?
I mean, their offensive lines played pretty good this season, but I think they could probably do for, maybe another guard in there. They got Laramie Tunsil. They got a couple guys that have played well. They don't have many holes as a team. They're pretty complete. Tank Dell, they lost him last quarter or so of the season. That definitely hurt. I don't know. Maybe they add another playmaker in the backfield. Maybe you get another running back, but I don't see many holes on that team. I really don't. They're just young. They're just a young team. They're the Packers of the AFC, and they're going to be something to deal with moving forward. I guess if I'm the head coach, I'm preparing to replace my offensive coordinator. That would be the biggest thing because Slowick has got to be, outside of Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick, 2 legendary guys, legendary football coaches. He's got to be the next number 1 guy on the board.
Yeah, for sure. Their organization is pointing straight up, though. And you bring up Green Bay. It is a good parallel between Houston and Green Bay, where got into the wild card round as underdogs, looked great, pulled it off. We watched that Houston-Baltimore game. Houston kind of run out of steam. Baltimore ran away. I was thinking the second game of the day was going to go the same way, really. Like, I know Green Bay definitely looked good last week, but I kind of thought, man, San Francisco is just so much better. I think this game might be a carbon copy of what we just seen with Houston and Baltimore, where Green Bay can keep it close, but they did. I mean, they were right in there to the end. You and I were texting during the game, San Francisco, Green Bay. I have a future bet on San Francisco to win the NFC, so I was rooting hard for San Fran. You're a big 49ers fan, rooting hard. So how nervous were you watching that game down to the end?
I had 4 strokes and 3 heart attacks. I just it was I did every year the 49ers in the playoffs. I don't know with Kyle Shanahan, they have these kind of games every year. 2 years ago was the Rams. We should have won that game. I don't care what anybody says. We dropped an interception that would have sealed that thing. This will be the 4th NFC Championship game we've been to in the last 5 years. We did get to the Super Bowl once, and we were a Jimmy G throw away from winning that, but he's not very good, so it didn't work out there either. And then last year, Brock Purdy gets hurt early. Then the backup guy, who's the definition of journeyman quarterback, takes a hard hit. And after what happened to Tua in a game, the NFL is all over these guys falling hard and taking them out of the game. And we didn't have a third quarterback, which I think is so stupid. The NFL, I mean, I'm a fan. I can criticize them like anyone else. It's really stupid that you have these limits. Why is there a 45-man game day dressed limit on the roster? Now they can have this emergency quarterback, but there's all these stinking stipulations of when he can play, when he doesn't count towards the roster, but can only play in X, Y, and Z circle. So basically you have to have your quarterback tear his UCL, and then you have to have your backup get a concussion before the guy's allowed to play. It used to be a standard that there was always a third-string quarterback on the roster, but teams kind of smartened up and said, hey, we never use this guy. Why don't we get another, defender in there somewhere, another offensive lineman? I just don't understand the logic on capping these rosters. Why is there a cap on the rosters in the first place? Other than the owners don't want to pay anybody else, but you can choose how many you have. Like, I don't get the logic. No one's ever explained that to me myself, but I don't know why I got on this tangent. But anyway, the 49ers were giving me a heart attack yesterday. Kyle Shanahan, I don't know what it is. When Deebo Samuel is taking out of the game, when he schemes for Deebo Samuel to be in the game, when he gets hurt in a game, which happens all the time, it's just like he loses his mind. He doesn't know how to really go forward without mixing Deebo in. And then the first play of the second half, he does this thing where you see good point guards do. Well, they'll try to get a 2-for-1. But they'll try to get a layup, and then they'll try to steal the ball, or they'll see how much time's left on the clock. They'll go down and get a layup, try to force the defense, to force a turnover, and then get a score before the end of a quarter or a half. This is what Kyle Shanahan likes to do. He likes to score at the end of the half and then get the ball first to start the second half. Well, he gets the ball at the end of the second half, and then he plays for a stinking field goal that doesn't work out. We got a shaky rookie kicker there who, if you see, it was blocked. That Green Bay front got a yard push, but it was going left. That thing was not coming in. It was raining. This kid's confidence is shaky to start with. That didn't work out. We get the ball to start the second half, and what does he do? He tries to end around with Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings is not Deebo Samuel. So he just loses his mind sometimes when Deebo Samuel's not in there. And then he stopped using Christian McCaffrey. All year long, we've been talking about why are you pounding Christian McCaffrey into the ground, saving for the playoffs. And now it's the playoffs, and he's not using him. It could drive me crazy sometimes the way this guy calls a game. But, man, they came through. They got a couple of interceptions. Brock Purdy got lucky on a couple of interceptions being dropped. The defense came through there in that second half especially. They got some really nice stops. But I'll tell you what, that Green Bay coaching staff coached their butts off, and they outplayed San Francisco.
Yeah, you got to give Green Bay's coaches a lot of credit for how they performed down the stretch, beating Dallas like that. LaFleur showed he's a good coach. For them to play as well as they did, youngest team in the league, youngest team to ever win a playoff game. You got to give your hats off to them. It was neck and neck battle. The difference in the game really was the turnovers in the second half there by Love. The first one was tipped, but it was well behind the receiver. It wasn't a good throw.
No.
The second one was just horrific. He just launched it off his, throwing across his body, just textbook, something you couldn't do. Purdy, I agree, looked at times like nervous, tight. You see it a lot with these teams. They get in the playoffs, and when it's one and done, everything changes. Everybody plays a little bit tighter. When you're a big favorite like that, what were they, 10 or 11-point favorites? And the game stays close. Green Bay did a good job of just grinding clock. Would they have the ball like the entire first quarter? Like San Francisco wasn't even on the field. So once they drag them into the second half where it's close, you just see guys play a little bit tight. But give them credit. They came through when they had to. They made the plays. Purdy did make a few really good throws. He makes some plays where his arm looks really good, man. His arm strength is not lacking really for what he is. He doesn't have a cannon, but he makes some throws. Like he made a real good out throw on that. I think it was the last drive or second to last. Just perfect in between the safety and the corner on the sideline. Just a laser right on the money. He looks really good at times. They're rolling with them. They'll see. What about next week for them? You got Detroit and Tampa Bay. What if I told you early in the year you'll be home NFC Championship game against either Tampa Bay or Detroit? How would you like that?
I'd say I'd take that every day of the week. But Detroit's the matchup there defensively. It's going to be tough because they have a great offensive line, and that's what's going. The defensive front didn't get any sacks. They got 5 quarterback hits, but they didn't get any sacks. And I thought Green Bay blocking was absolutely superb yesterday. Every play they had drawn up, they blocked almost perfectly. The 49ers, outside of that 153-yard run by Aaron Jones, that was another, man, what a play design that they went to. Go that left side, he pitches, he comes out wide, and he comes right up. Everybody, the receivers, the tight end, the offensive line, they just blocked a lane for him. He just took off. That was a great run. But if the 49ers are not able to get in and get a pass rush, it kind of exposes some guys that we have on the back end there, Ambry Thomas and Diamondor Lenore. Some of these guys, we've got picked up a guy, Logan Ryan. He wasn't even playing in the NFL. He's coming in and playing safety now because Hufanga and Jair Brown are both hurt. So Logan Ryan is out there. He's only played a couple games this season for us. He was like nobody wanted him all year. So Green Bay attacked those guys and it worked out for them. So if the 49ers can't get a pass rush, then you're going to be exposed. Now Jared Goff, he's not top tier Jordan Love. I don't think he doesn't have the ceiling that Jordan Love does. But they do have good receivers there in Detroit. So I'd probably rather play Tampa, but their offensive line isn't bad. But Baker Mayfield, he slings it. They got some good receivers there too.
Yeah, if they play Tampa, I mean, depending on how today's game goes, they're going to be 2 touchdown favorites or close to it. I mean, they were 10-point favorites over Green Bay, so that'd be wild if Tampa Bay can win that game and make the NFC Championship. Like, holy crap, who would have seen that coming? We'll talk about those games later. But, yeah, San Fran, you're right. They always seem like a different team when Samuel's in there and when he's not, for whatever reason. I mean, they use him in so many ways. Think Shanahan maybe does try to like pigeon Jawan Jennings or other guys into that role. It's just there's no one like Deebo Samuel. I mean, he's just so unique. I've said it. I think with the ball in his hands, the best receiver in the NFL, just in the open field running. He's just so powerful too. Guys just fall off of him. So yeah, I mean, his injury status is going to be huge. Have you heard anything about his status for next week?
They talked to him and he said they asked him how he feels. He just said, "I feel okay." He had some shoulder problems earlier in the year. I mean, I love the guy as a player, but he's hurt so much. It's almost like, is this even worth what we're paying the guy? We paid him a huge contract. And if you're not getting the guy for your playoff games, which you need him for badly, and, he missed several games in the middle of the season. I mean, I guess injuries are fluky. It's tough to say, but I'm not sure. He just seems like the kind of guy where as soon as he's not feeling 100%, then he needs to sit out. And I know he takes a lot of hits, but I don't know. I just wish he was a little bit more durable. It's hard to move on from a guy like that because there's only been like one other guy in this modern era that's been as good as him. I mean, just in the last 5 years or so, Cordero Patterson, but he's like 35. He's too old to fill that role. So really, you'd have to draft somebody with that kind of skill to come in and replace him. And you don't find those guys. So it's a tough place to be in. If he's not playing, then they're going to have to go more to George Kittle. And, I mean, Brandon Ayuk didn't have that many catches yesterday. I don't know why they didn't go to him more, but he came up clutch when they needed him.
He did.
So, I mean, they're going to have to game. It seemed to me like when Christian McCaffrey got to San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan's creativity went out the window. And we remember before that happened, before the middle of the year last year when they drafted him the previous couple of years, he was so creative in his run plays. He was so creative in the pass game. And he made Jimmy G look like, a guy that could win you a Super Bowl, which he almost did. And look at Jimmy G now. I don't know where that creativity is gone.
Yeah, I mean, you see them more than I do week to week, but you and I would always talk like we'd watch the Steelers at 1 o'clock with Matt Canada, just and then 4 o'clock the 49ers will come on, and it's like, holy crap! Like, how can people not see the difference? Like, look at the difference in these play calls, what Matt Canada is doing in Shanahan, and some people are like, oh, it offense coordinator doesn't matter, it's players make the plays. Like, go ahead and watch some film of Pittsburgh with Canada and Shanahan. You see them a lot more than I do, so I don't know. You're probably right. Maybe they haven't gotten this creative. I know they lean on just the raw ability of McCaffrey a ton. I mean, they just get him the ball, and he usually comes through. I mean, even in the passing game, check down to him a ton yesterday. What do you have, like 7 or 8 targets? He's just massive part of what they do. So, he's huge too. He's always the injury away from, the offense being completely changed too. So, yeah, Debo, he's such a unique role. Like as a pure wide receiver, like running routes, catching the ball. I think Ayuk's probably a better
Yeah,
receiver, really, just
definitely.
pure wide receiver ability. It's all the stuff after the catch with the ball in his hands. He's just irreplaceable in that offense.
Yeah, he is. And it's tough to. You're kind of in a bind. He's so good that what do? You can't get rid of the guy, and you have to use him up to his ability. But doing so, he's constantly hurt. You talk about durability. Talk about what a soldier McCaffrey is in comparison. All the touches that guy had this season, and he only missed one game, and that was the last game of the season. And I don't think he wanted to miss, but it just the wear and tear over the season had really got to him. So 3 weeks off did him well. He had 98 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. I think he had 7 catches for 40 yards. I still think they should have went to him more yesterday, but
Yeah.
I think they got out-coached, and I think they got lucky on a couple dropped interceptions. That fourth down, that when Green Bay was deep in 49ers territory, that spot was a great 49er spot. We usually don't get those spots. Never get those spots. That never works out for the 49ers. They did get them yesterday. But at the same time, Green Bay got, 3 big pass interference calls. We've been talking all year. Guys have been getting mugged all season long, and the NFL has had to have communicated to these refs, don't throw as many PI flags. It's just gotten out of hand. So now it's gone to, you'll get holding calls once in a while, but they'll let contact go. Well, yesterday they didn't let anything go in that first half especially, and that really cost the 49ers. It cost them a couple touchdowns, really. So I guess things maybe evened out in the end, and the better team did come away, but I still think they got out-coached. And Shanahan, I think he knows it, so he's going to have to really come through whoever we play this week.
Yeah, they're still home team. Going to be big favorites next week. Resting up today, watching this game. I mean, they're still in a good spot. So you're right. San Francisco has been right on the cusp for a long time now. And it reminds me of the Steelers in like the mid 90s when they had Cowher. It's like every year they'd get to the AFC title game or even the Super Bowl, lose. And it took, a decade or plus to get over the hump. So you hope to not see that with San Francisco. I mean, they're just stacked. Look at Green Bay's roster versus San Francisco's roster. That game shouldn't have been close like it was. I mean, they're just totally stacked. So hopefully this is a year for San Fran.
Yeah, as a 49ers fan, I grew up, in the 90s. The 49ers had the best winning percentage in the NFL, even better than Dallas. They won a Super Bowl right in the middle of that Dallas dynasty. And really, it was Dallas and Green Bay. Green Bay went to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. Dallas went to 3, won all 3. They were right smack dab in the middle of that, and they either just didn't get a lucky bounce or they just wasn't good enough that year. Those teams were good enough. Then Harbaugh comes in, and he has 3 years where he could have easily won 1. Things didn't work out. Should have went to 2 Super Bowls if not for a fumbled punt. So I'm really hoping this isn't the same thing like the late 90s on through the Harbaugh era where we're so close and we're good enough. But you have to have some luck in the playoffs, and it seems like we got that yesterday. So maybe things will change. But we'll see next week. So before we move on to these 2 games today in our picks, do have to say, if you feel like you have a gambling problem or you need some help, 1-800-GAMBLER is there for you. It will give you the resources you need, somebody to talk to. And remember to never bet more than you can afford to lose, 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, so we'll start off in that NFC. There's a good transition now. We'll start off with this. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Detroit Lions. The Buccaneers on FanDuel are getting 6.5 points. The system likes that pick. So we're officially going to take Tampa Bay plus 6.5 at Detroit. Listening to some of the guys that we like to listen to, the professional bettors, talking about matchups and whatnot, this Buccaneers team is going to have a hard time running the ball. So this is going to fall on Baker Mayfield right now and what he can do. As far as the Lions go, last week, the last 2.5 quarters, they completely disappeared. Jared Goff, I don't know what happened to him. He just did. I think they score 3 points in the last 2.5 quarters, and really they're one play away from losing that game. LA screwed themselves with a timeout, I think, there late in the game where they could have got the ball back and drove down and kicked a field goal. But both of these teams are, according to the system, right around average teams. The Lions are a little bit better than average. The Bucs are right around average when you take all the games all season long into consideration. But the Lions do have a higher ceiling. And it looks like 63% of the cash against the spread is on the Lions and 83% of the money line. So the public is all over Detroit right now. We're going the opposite way. We're going with the Bucs plus 6.5, almost a touchdown. I wouldn't blame you if you bought the hook. You see anything in particular about this matchup?
Yeah, they're kind of both. Defenses are much better against the run than they are the pass. They're both kind of pass funnel. So probably going to come down to Baker Mayfield against Jared Goff. So we'll see. I don't know. The Detroit last week, you're right. Early in the game, they moved the ball pretty well, looked great. We had the Rams in that game. Detroit was just marching up and down the field, and for whatever reason, the second half made some adjustments. I'm not sure, but Detroit had all kinds of trouble moving the ball. The biggest play in that game really was the Rams had the ball late, driving, had like a 3rd and 12. The Rams quarterback made a perfect throw to Nakua, like a 15-yard comeback route. Defensive back just mugged him, held him down. I mean, he hit it pretty good, but he had his jersey on the backside and prevented Nakua from going up and getting the ball. Incomplete, no flag. I mean, that was a huge, huge play in the game, which, there you go. We can talk about these pass interference and illegal contact. It's hard. I mean, I know we give the refs a lot of grief, but a lot of those in like real time when you watch it, it's just happens so quick. And the DBs sometimes are just real good at just hiding it, just giving a little bit of a tug enough to where it affects it. And I mean, it swings the game. So, yeah, I was not surprised at all. Tampa Bay was going to be the play here for the system. It's a classic spot where Tampa Bay just flies under the radar. I mean, no one even really talks about it. I mean, their coach, Bowles. I mean, you even realize he's the coach. I mean, no one even talks about old Todd Bowles. I mean, They got Mayfield. There's kind of just like once Brady left, it was like, they might be decent, but here we are. They're in the divisional round playing Detroit. So, yeah, I wasn't surprised that Tampa Bay's a system play this week.
Well, and the Bucs, they are just about an average team, but they have when they play good, they can really do some damage. I mean, they went to Green Bay and absolutely annihilated Green Bay about a month ago. I mean, that game was not even close. They went up there and just smacked them around. I don't know what happened in that game. I didn't get to watch it other than on the red zone, but if Detroit isn't playing their best and there's some kind of a matchup that Tampa can take advantage of. They got 2 great receivers there. They got a couple good offensive linemen. They got a quarterback who can play hot sometimes, and they've got playmakers on the defensive end. They've got Levante David. They've got Winfield. They've got these guys that can play tough. So who knows? This could be a better matchup than people think. I do think they're the underdogs. But in Baker Mayfield, if you're him personally, you've been proving the doubters wrong. But you played for $4 million this year. He's making less than half of the backups in the league. He wants paid, So him getting to the NFC Championship game, you want to talk about motivation. That guy's got some motivation. Bowles wants to prove everybody that he's a good coach. Detroit, I don't know. Are they going to have an emotional letdown? That was a big emotional win, man. We talk about this in college football all the time. You see this all the time, and I don't know why you and I don't make more money from this. We don't. Every year we say, man, we should have knew that was coming, that big game last week. It was a rematch of this or that, or is this coach now coaches for these guys. Last week you had the face of the Detroit Lions for over a decade who left and won a Super Bowl with someone else coming back in there. The guy that was discarded from the other team was the quarterback for the Lions. There was all of these storylines that came in. Are you going to see emotional letdown today? That could very, very well happen We don't see it as much in the pros because these guys are millionaires and hey, screw your feelings. You got a job to do. You got money to make and your future's on the line. So they kind of like brush that off. They try to stay more even keel emotionally. But you have to think are you going to carry that in for a second game?
Yeah, it was a huge emotional spot. The crowd at that game was just out of control. Like Detroit's always kind of known for like an underrated crowd noise, the dome up there, but that was like you could tell that the whole entire city was just hanging on pins and needles in that game. So I think those emotional factors certainly swing more in college where the kids are just younger, not as mature to handle those kinds of things. I mean, I do for college, especially look for angles like that constantly where a team just had a huge top 25 matchup. Now they're going on the road to play someone lower in the conference that they're not going to be up for. I mean, you can make a lot. Those things are supposed to be built into the line, but in my personal opinion, I just don't think they are enough. So for here, I mean, you would think it's Detroit. They're in a division round. Like they're still going to be up for it, but we'll see. I mean, they can't possibly be ass up for it. You wouldn't think as they were for playing the Rams. I think the QB matchup is mostly what this is going to come down to. I don't think either team's going to be able to run the ball particularly well. It's going to come down to Baker and Goff. I mean, we talk about it all the time. QB matchup, coach matchup. Who would you rather have here, Baker and Bowles or Goff and Campbell? I mean, it's a pretty even matchup in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would rather have Campbell and his staff around. Who's better out of Goff and Mayfield? I think Mayfield has a higher ceiling, if I'm being honest. We've seen him play hot before. I think he gets, he's a gunslinger, just kind of like Goff is once in a while. But I don't know that he loses his mind. Like Goff's floor is just sometimes awful. I mean, you've seen it in the middle of the season this year where there was a couple of games where it's like, holy smokes, here's that guy we saw in LA, or that first year he was in Detroit. He had some games like that, but he doesn't seem to do it nearly as much today. So I don't know. I would probably take Campbell's staff. He has a really good offensive coordinator who's really creative. Campbell he takes chances. He knows he's in, let's win now. Got nothing to lose. We're the Lions. Let's go for it. And he's done a great job with that. Bowles, he's not Sean McVay. Let's not mistake that. Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL. So to see the Rams almost win that game was not a surprise. They have Stafford, who's an amazing arm talent. They got Nakua. They've got Aaron Donald, and they've got that head coach. Bowles is not him. Bowles is traditional. He'll blitz every single down. So if Goff can get get a quick release, get the ball out, they could win this game comfortably. But we're going to officially take the Buccaneers plus 6.5. And that's the first pick today. And the second system pick, we're going to head right to this AFC game here. The Chiefs are heading to the Buffalo Bills. The Chiefs are getting 3 points on ESPN Bet. That's the line we're going to use. And the system likes the Kansas City Chiefs getting 3. The Chiefs are healthy today. The Bills have a couple of injuries on the back end there of the defense. Rasul Douglas and Teron Johnson, both questionable, but it looks like both will play. And they have a couple of other guys that may be out, but they're not as a big a part of the defense as those two are. And Kansas City will, in the Pat Mahomes era, will be playing their first ever away playoff game, which is kind of unbelievable to even think about. These guys have been to 3 Super Bowls, and they've also been to another AFC championship game that they lost. I think they might have lost 2 AFC championships, one to New England and then one to Cincinnati. So in the last 5 years, they've not played an away game in the last 5 years in the playoffs. And they've been to at least the AFC championship game every year. For this to be their first away game, wow. It really smacks you in the faces with this dynasty that we're seeing right here from KC. But, they're getting 3 points. This isn't the same Kansas City teams that we've seen in the past. Their offense is down, but their defense is up. This is going to be a tight game today.
It's a fun game. I mean, this is the game of the weekend for sure. Get the classic KC Buffalo. They've got a pretty good rivalry going really between these two teams. They've had some big games. I was looking at stats. Mahomes versus Allen all time is tied 3-3. So this will be the tiebreaker between them. Buffalo has won the last 2. Most of the games have been at KC. I think 4 straight games have been at KC. So I'm sure Buffalo's happy to get a home game here. Mahomes versus Allen, classic. I mean, who do you take between the two? Good luck. I mean, Mahomes, you have to kind of favor him. They have the experience, just a little bit better resume, a little more careful with the ball. You got Reed versus McDermott. I mean, you got everything you want in a classic playoff matchup here today.
Yeah, I mean, you go to what do we use as tiebreakers? We go to the quarterbacks, and then we go to the coaches. And you've got 2 great quarterbacks here, 2 great coaches. I would say, obviously, Andy Reid's the better coach here. Let's be honest. Mahomes, overall, he is the better quarterback. I mean, he really is.
I would say so too.
The difference between those two, there's not a big gap between Reid and McDermott. I should say there's a gap, but not huge. And it's the same thing with the quarterback. So then we go to the rest of the rosters. It's close, but I do think Buffalo does have 1 or 2 more playmakers. And that's probably why they're favored here. They haven't had good luck this year as far as turnovers go. We've talked about that before. They do got a quarterback that sometimes does not care. I will throw the ball 400 yards down the field in triple coverage. I've got this arm. I trust in my guy. I'm going to do it. When he gets into that mode, it cannot work out. So if there are a couple of turnovers here, Mahomes does his thing where he's keeping plays alive. He's got the most amazing natural talent that we've ever seen in this game. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody's had the talent that Pat Mahomes has had. He's a better runner than people think, but he doesn't have the playmakers on his side this season. This is going to be a tight game, man. I don't know where you're going to find an edge here. Maybe Buffalo focuses on the run. They can kind of pound it. As far as the Chiefs go, if that Buffalo pass rush gets through, Mahomes is going to have to use his legs, which he's done a lot in the past. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's still one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL. He's going to have somebody on offense step up, and Kelsey can't be the only guy today.
Yeah, they've leaned on Kelsey a good bit last week. They're going to try to run the ball. They run the ball more than you think. The Buffalo does too. Buffalo's kind of switched more to a more run heavy this year with Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator. Seemed like it was kind of directed by McDermott, where they got Dorsey out of there, and it was kind of directive, like, look, we need to go a little more heavy, run the ball on offense. Kansas City, as good as they are on defense, they're number 2 overall, but against the run, they're down there pretty far. They're much better against the pass, so could be an underrated key to the game is how good Cook and Buffalo can get the run game going against that Kansas City D. Buffalo, the kid Kincaid looks really good, man. He killed the Steelers last week. Yeah. You can tell he's a real weapon.
Right.
Allen likes to go to him, so I think that is the big key to the offense. The difference between them is Buffalo has Diggs and Kincaid, where Kansas City has Kelsey. Rice looks like wide receiver 1 at times. He had a huge game last week too. So, overall, offensively, slight edge to Buffalo. Overall, defensively, probably slight edge to KC. Coaching, KC. I think it's a toss-up game. So a game like this, getting 3 points, I'm happy to take 3 points with the Chiefs here.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about the weather. Have you?
It looks like decent. About like last week, they said it's going to be cold. 20 degrees, a little bit of wind, but manageable where it's not going to be too much of a factor.
Well, that's beach weather compared to what Casey dealt with last week. So I don't think that's going to bother either team then. So we got another tight matchup here. The system officially likes Kansas City +3 at Buffalo and Tampa Bay +6.5 at Detroit. Our system picks here on the Cherry Pickers we have a winning record. We're 18-15. So we're hoping to go 20-15 here heading into the conference championship week next week. So before we head into Bailey's best bet and a teaser pick, we do have to say 1-800-GAMBLER is there for you. Resources are out there. If you feel like you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Jim, it's a tough week to pick both a teaser and a best bet. We only have 2 games today because we weren't able to get to the games yesterday. So I'm not going to put you on the hot seat and make you pick both. Do you have one or do you have both? What do you got going for us this week?
Yeah, we're just going to roll it all into one. My favorite bet this week is really teasing the 2 system picks. I do like both of those plays, so adding 6 points to each of those teams, I think it's a good play. I looked around. I couldn't find anywhere that had both KC +3 and Tampa Bay +6.5. So to be fair, most of the books have it at 2.5 for Buffalo, have it at 6 for the Tampa Bay game. So we're going to go Tampa Bay +12 as one leg, and then Kansas City +8.5 as our other leg. Roll that up, call it a teaser, call it a best bet. That's our play of the week.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. We're definitely coming back next week. The 49ers are in the Ravens are hosting whoever wins these 2 games today. And it's hard to believe this. We'll be talking about the Super Bowl here in a couple weeks. Every year the NFL season goes fast, and all of us NFL junkies, I don't know, start to get a little bit depressed thinking that we're almost done, but we'll be back. And like I said in the past, we're definitely going to this new UFL league that's coming. We're going to try to keep this show going on using our system for that, keep spitting out bets and bringing you this show. Thanks for everybody that's tuned in to us today. That'll do it for episode 9 of the Cherry Pickers. All I know is next week, if the 49ers lose, Jim, you're just going to have to kind of keep my spirits up in this show because I don't know. If they don't win that game, it's going to be a pretty big disappointment for me. But I got trust in you that you will get me through it.
Well, we'll be back on before the games next week, so we'll break them down for you, and I'll brace you whether you should be nervous or not.
Okay.
I'm sure you will be either way.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of Your Sports Network. For stories, stats, and more, go to ysnlive.com.